Welcome to another episode of the Majestic View Show. The Majestic View Show is where we have the real, authentic conversations about topics you don't always usually talk about. So go ahead and grab your drink, grab your popcorn, chillax. This is going to be a great conversation about interracial relationships and how Black women always get the tail end of it all. So I'm Zaakirah with the Majestic View from Tulsa, Oklahoma.
And I'm Leah World Traveler with a majestic view from Jamestown, Rhode Island. And before we jump into today's topic, and actually apropos a little bit of today's topic, we have to acknowledge the tragedy of the loss of Tina Turner today. It just broke in the news that she finally succumbed to a long-term illness she had been battling, and we finally lost her. So she is with the ancestors now, but her legacy remains. And whenever we need some inspiration, she's just a click away. That's the beauty of the internet. But she will definitely be missed, as will her legacy. She definitely was a trailblazer and a blueprint for a lot of the artists that we all admire today. I don't know if you want to add anything. You're muted.
I was hearing all the noises in my background. But yes, so my prayer goes out to her and her family. From what I did know about her story, I just recently saw the HBO documentary, and now may she have utmost freedom. She got freedom.
Mm-hmm.
From what we all know as that one relationship that
Mm-hmm.
started and it was turbulent, but may she and her family have the most utmost freedom now.
Absolutely. For sure. She's definitely free of all the earthly bonds and shackles and legacy and baggage that we all carry in life. And she can do whatever she wants to do now and continue to send her blessings on all of us as an
Mhm.
ancestor. So rest in power, Queen Tina. You will be missed. And whenever we need you, like I said, you're just a click away, or we'll just look to the heavens and find you there. But the reason why, so moving into the topic, which I think is going to be a good one. I want to mention that, as you know, you were mentioning the kind of very toxic long-term relationship that Tina Turner was in with her ex, but who, of course, she left in historic, amazing fashion. And for the last several years of her life, she was in an interracial relationship with a white European man, and who she has said numerous times in the media was the love of her life. So it's kind of interesting that we're having this conversation, and the conversation actually came up just in a little chat that I was having with Zaakirah, because I'm seeing all over the internet now, and really for the last several years, a lot of like echo chambering kind of conversations in Black circles about continued um, sort of frustration with Black women when they choose to date out or outside of the race, or choose partners that are not Black males or Black, versus a little less um, criticism of Black males who choose to date out. In general, I mean, for me, my personal opinion is love is love. You love who you want, who you like and who you want to be with. Period. I used to be more militant earlier in my life, and I always felt like, Black love is a really special thing. It's something that should be cherished. We should be seeking that, trying to always encourage Black love and Black relationships. And I still believe that. However, I also feel like life is too short. And if your partner, your soulmate, comes to you in a form other than your Black counterpart, then that's also fine. You got to live your life and you need to be happy. But that said, what I'm seeing, and then hopefully Zaakirah can chime in, is that more and more it seems like there's an expectation that it should just be accepted and acceptable when Black men choose to date out. But when Black women do it, it's still a source of controversy. It's still a problem. Somehow she's a sellout. Why can't she find a good man? And it becomes an opportunity to further tear down the Black woman. Um, and the same treatment isn't given to Black men. And I don't understand this sort of difference in reaction. I'm like, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? So why are so many people quick to judge or quick to demonize a Black woman for dating out? And then when Black women express frustration or being upset about a Black man choosing a non-Black woman, then instead of him being criticized, that woman is called out for her frustration with him dating someone out. I really struggle with that. So I don't know what do you think about it, Zaakirah? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I have different take because I am also one of those of I know love is my religion, right? So I'm also one of those that's like as long as you're happy and as long as I'm happy, and that's really my take. But I think I'm big on, history, right? And so history cannot be erased or not noticed, and it's probably why we're having these tough conversations, because it's passed down through us whether we realize it or accept it or not. Of like, those the roads that were shifted of first the start of slavery ended up being because of our ethnicity ended up being predominantly raped, right? Which is why there are so many biracial ethnicities anyway. But then flip the script of now we have more freedom after lots of fights, lots of wars, and now we have a bit more freedom. And so people are actually choosing just what works for them. And so it just so happens to be that the person is just a lighter skin tone than their mama was, right? And so, what's so interesting also is, at least from my experience, I witnessed Black love. My parents actually they're gonna be celebrating 33 years of marriage tomorrow. And so, I've witnessed Black love. But at the same time, on the other spectrum, it has a lot to do with the environment, because I have a lot of biracial and Caucasian and ethnicity marriages or relationships in my family. And so a lot of it does have to do with the environment, because, for example, my dad's side of the family grew up in Tennessee. And so that's where it's nothing but intermingling of other ethnicities. And so it's like, okay, it's just, something you see naturally, because that's what it's like in that small town of Tennessee. And then on the other hand, with me, I grew up going to predominantly white institution schools, charter schools, technical schools, and they were all predominantly white. So naturally, my first crushes, my first boyfriends were Caucasian. So I think it really does vary of what were you taught, what were you told, what was embedded in you when you grew up about, you know, even looking at the other side of the world, the other ethnicities of the world, because we all came from the same blood.
Yeah, I completely agree. And you already know a little bit about my background, and in some ways it's
So
very
for those
similar to
who don't,
yours. So for those that don't know, I grew up in a really homogeneously white environment. My biological mother is white. My biological father is Black, but not American. So didn't raise me, wasn't a part of my life at all, and lives still to this day outside of the United States. And my mother remarried another white man when I was a baby. So I have no memory even of anybody else in my life in the father role than my white father. So growing up with a completely white family, at least my nuclear family and even my extended family on my mother's side, and then being in a really small town white America, much like Zaakirah, the people who were around me, the people in my environment were basically all white. There really was not much diversity at that time. Fast forward to now, it's much more diverse than it was when I was a kid, but during my time it really wasn't. And so, as a kid I didn't really have any like feeling that I had to have a Black male as my mate or my ideal mate. I just sort of always had the belief that, I'm going to be with someone who I like, someone who loves me, someone who sees me, respects me, lifts me up, is my true partner that I have a genuine connection with. And I didn't really care as much about what that form took. I just was open to the idea of true love, real love with someone who was a partner. And like Zaakirah, my early boyfriends, like the little fake middle school, early high school relationships were also with white boys, and then later biracial boys. And then I graduated to Black, a Black boyfriend who I had long term in high school, and then African American and African. Um, he was biracial, I guess, in that sense. One parent was American, one was from West Africa, for my college boyfriend, and then ultimately married an African American male. But it wasn't necessarily because that was what I had set out to do. It wasn't necessarily that that was what I was seeking. It is just because those are the people that I vibe with. That's who I clicked with. Those are the people that at that time were the right ones, at least in my mind, who I wanted to be with. But I remember, and especially when I entered college and I started learning more about like the historical context of what Zaakirah was mentioning, the intentional destruction of the Black family by literally tearing families apart, by literally breeding out Black children, by having Black women subject to rape and sexual abuse throughout the history of enslavement, and then Black men being demonized in terms of being sexual predators and all these things that were completely false. um, and taking them out of the Black household, I understand why there are still remaining strong feelings about this core unit of the Black family, which really is the man and woman, that make the core nucleus of that family, and why it is so important to protect and preserve and cherish Black love and to encourage it. Um, but I think the thing that I'm seeing that I think is toxic is that when those connections don't happen for whatever reason, and someone who is Black or biracial but Black presenting, or Black identifying, chooses a non-Black partner, somehow it's still problematic. And where it seems to be more problematic is when it's a Black woman doing it. um and I really don't understand this sort of backlash against Black women who do it, because what I'm hearing, and Zaakirah, you tell me what you're hearing or reading and seeing, is that when Black women are doing that is because they are not suitable mates for a Black man. They're not submissive enough. They are too combative. They're too angry. They're too independent. They're this, they're that. They're loud. They're brash. They're fake. They're that, with the weaves and the hair and the nails. Like no other women of different ethnicities do the same, number one. But I just don't understand why there's suddenly this knee-jerk reaction to critique and destroy and pull down the Black woman, instead of just being like, if she's happy, go be happy, go live your life. You found love, you found somebody who loves you. What's wrong with that? But then at the same time, turning around and watching a lot of our Black athletes, a lot of our prominent Black male figures, entrepreneurs, folks in Hollywood who are dating pretty much everything that walks, and ultimately marrying white women, not being held to the same standard or not being critiqued in the same way. Don't get me wrong, there's definitely people who are like, why can't he bring home a Black woman? Why can't they keep that wealth in the Black community? And I definitely have feelings about that too, but that's a different conversation. But it's accepted more broadly, or the response that I'm hearing is, for the people who critique that, you just need to accept it. Or there's something wrong with you, Black woman, why he didn't choose you. There's nothing wrong with him. And it seems like no matter what you do, the Black woman is still the one that is the excuse as to why she can't find a Black male partner, or why a Black male would not choose her as his partner. I don't know. That's what I'm hearing. And I really am having a hard time understanding it and wrapping my mind around why this is happening. What
Yeah.
about you, Zaakirah? What are you
And you
hearing?
know what? I think, especially if you're watching this and you got something to say, put that in the comment. What is this your personal experience? Is this something that you've experienced or witnessed firsthand? Put that in the comment, because that's what this is about. Um, Raising awareness and raising the bar and having those conversations. But I think for me, I want to go back to your point of diversity now, of like kind of sharing of like from the 60s, 70s on, we were segregated for so long. And there's so many stories out there now. Bridgerton, for example, and then Tyler Perry did a movie, I think, called Jasmine Blues or something. There are a lot of stories out there about the interracial relationship was always there. It's just there's certain laws put in place. There's certain stereotypes put in place to kind of keep that from happening. But um, I think I'm starting to just watch, just curious, out of curiosity. Remember Scandal? Shonda Rhimes, has a Scandal TV show too. Of he chose a Black woman, and so I think what happens is, I think the first example I'm trying to think of, the first example that I remember where people were really just really really talking about it, because I'm big on Twitter. I'm a big Twitter user, so that's where I get my news and my the forums and the chords and the tweets and stuff. So I remember for sure when they said Serena was marrying, right, marrying, outside after continuously having, at least in the headlines, having continuous heartbreak with the previous male, African American male that she was with. And so then I think, I could see, like, obviously there's a certain level of access that you can have. One, they other ethnicities do have access to information. Not all of them are from that generation of families who were part of, making slavery worse, right? So there's some awareness with other ethnicities that I've seen that they're like, my generation is not a part of that, but I want to understand, and that had nothing to do with me, but I care about you, right? And then also because they have that step up, because unfortunately we still have that pay wage gap, where sure there's a man out there of other ethnicities willing to help a sister out, like figuratively and literally. And so sometimes it's just we I think we talked about this in a previous episode. We've had a few, Majestic View episodes, so be sure to check out our YouTube channel. But there's that superwoman syndrome. Like sometimes, at least for the Black woman, we don't want to be superwoman all the time, you know. But sometimes that's what I've witnessed. Again, this is not my experience, but I've witnessed that most choose, because it's such a continuous fight, with those of the of African descent. When Black women are with African descent, that they still gotta fight, they still gotta nurture, right? Versus when can they actually put their cape down? So that's what I've witnessed as far as the Black woman perspective. But I think, like you said, that's a longer timeline, longer story of it being the other way around, of the Black men choosing the white man, and not getting as much backlash. And before you say that, we are halfway to the middle mark, and so I want to say, if this is your first time watching the Majestic View show, we are women in media who talk about all of the topics that you don't want to talk about, whether that's um, in finances, in media, in lifestyle, in health, in maternal health, menstrual health, whatever you want to talk about that doesn't often get talked about. We have had a couple of special guests as well, and so we do welcome guests. And so, if you want to be a guest on the show, leave a comment. Leave a comment. I don't have the handy dandy
Mhm.
wording, but leave a comment, and we would love to have you be a guest or follow us on our social media handle. Also, I want to acknowledge that this is also being filmed in Mental Health Awareness Month, and I want to give a special shout out to a nonprofit called Silence the Shame. Silence the Shame is all about ending the mental health stigma, and so you can learn more about Silence the Shame by going to silencetheshame.com. Follow Silence the Shame on YouTube, or just donate. It's a nonprofit, so uh, choose Silence to 707070 and learn more about ways to continue to raise awareness about ending the stigma amongst mental health. So back over to you, Leah.
Yeah, I just want to underscore that too, that even this topic, even though it seems like it falls more in the lane of relationships, it does have a tie to mental health, because I do think it's a stigma and it's a sickness to automatically want to demonize, another person. The types of comments and some of the backlash that I'm seeing against Black women, I think shows signs of, like, something mental health. There's some trigger there that's going on. It may not be like a clinical mental health thing, but it's certainly mental health in terms of shaping your worldview and your perspective. Um, and it really doesn't make sense, especially when it's coming out of the mouths of Black men, in my opinion, because you're talking about people who could be your sisters, your mother, your aunt, your cousin. And you can't say Black women are like this and then somehow accept your own family from those critiques and that opinion, when you know that that is not necessarily the case. I mean, you can't make any group monolithic. So I definitely feel like there's some more to unpack there, if it's generational trauma, if it's dealing with sort of the legacies of the ways in which Black people, African Americans in particular, were broken down mentally, psychologically, physically during the enslavement period, and how that continues to plague us today. Um, there's a lot of linkages there, and I think it's really unhealthy too, because instead of finding proactive and productive ways to continue to build and grow as a community, we instead choose to implode and tear each other down, instead of coming together as a community to lift each other up, especially in the face of a society that is already trying to keep us down and has shown that that's continues to be their preferred way to deal with communities of color. So it really is hurtful and damaging, and it's baffling to see us do it to ourselves, for whatever reason. Like I said, love is blind. Love is really worth it, no matter what package it comes in. I think none of us want to walk through life alone. We want to have a partner by our side to go on the journey with. And like I said, I'm at a point in my life where I'm less concerned about what that ideal partner looks like, and more just how they make me feel. And I'm really even less quick to judge anybody else's life and relationships. But which is why I'm struggling, really truly struggling, to understand this this treatment and this sort of like difference between the way in which Black men and Black women who choose to date outside are treated and perceived, and the expectations of, well, you should just accept it for him, but when she does it, you have to tear her down, and instead of just letting her live, you want to find a way to kind of tear down the core of her being, break her down in literally every way. In a way, I feel like I saw this really interesting like, I guess it was a TikTok short that showed up on my IG feed today. And it was basically this woman who was saying that Black women in the United States, and probably globally, but in particular in the United States, are held to an impossible standard. And the type of weight that Black women carry is a weight that no other subgroup of women have to carry. We're critiqued about how we look, we're critiqued about how we act. Our emotions are policed by other people. If we choose to show anger, all of a sudden we have an attitude. When anybody else who would express anger over something, they're allowed to explore the feeling, process the feeling, move through the feeling. But if it's us, it's an attitude, or we're the angry Black woman immediately. If we happen to be on welfare or SNAP or need, public assistance, we're automatically a stereotype. We're the problem. um, or if we end up being a single mother, automatically we're the reason why there's crime in America, why these kids are unruly. It's the mother's fault. It's that woman's fault. There's no other subgroup of women that I'm aware of that are given such negative treatment and no chance to be seen just for who they are. I really don't understand it at all. Um, so this is why I feel like it's an important conversation worth having. I genuinely do want to understand, as a Black woman in America and as a mother raising both a Black boy and a Black girl who will eventually enter into society and be facing these stereotypes unfairly, because it means that they're not being treated or perceived or interacted with based on who they are as a person. And especially because it's our own people who are the first to apply these stereotypes. So I'm not sure if you're seeing or hearing different things or the same things, Zaakirah. I'd be interested to see what your take is, if you are aware of some of these same sort of tropes that are held to Black women and not other groups of women, and some of this whole conversation about the submissiveness and Black women are too independent and we're too angry and we're not caring, we don't take care of the home, we don't take care of our man, we don't cater, and all these things that I think are totally false. Just because there's this idea that Black women are so strong and independent and we don't need no man, we need this. Yes, of course, there are some women that are like that, but there are some women who are not Black who are like that. Just like there are women who are Black and non-Black who all they want to do is take care of their man, cater to their man, take care of home, build a happy home life. I just feel like people are just making an all or nothing thing. There's no ability for an individual to be an individual. But
Yeah,
I've said a lot.
and
What do you think?
yeah, no, that's perfect, and so that's exactly why we're having the conversation because I too wanna. I mean, not, for me at least 9 out of 10 times when I do see um 9 out of 10 times when I see like relationship announcements where, especially if it was a shift, like most people are like, oh, they were showing out black love, all things black love, and then it's like, bam, I just got married to someone of a different ethnicity, and so there's always that conversation of like, oh, what? But in my mind, I'm like, well, what's the problem? As long as he's happy, right? And so, but I think that's where we could. I think that should be a future guest. If we could have somebody that really studied the sociology, anthropology, psychology of it all, because from what just from the like you said, like the Black woman is the most unprotected woman. Malcolm X said it. And happy belated birthday to Malcolm X. And he said it, and he's right because in America it's like we birth society and like we have literally birthed society, and so I think something shifted definitely between the Jim Crow era to just kind of be like leave the woman alone because they have all the power, you know, and so it's definitely so many different angles, and my takeaway for sure would be okay. Well, what can we do to no longer be stereotyped against each other about it? What can we do to continue to raise the awareness that we all came from one place, and literally it is the Black woman that can make all kinds of women through all ethnicities and all kinds of humans, all kinds of humans through all ethnicities. And so, what is it going to take to really understand that it truly is one love? Bob Marley again. Bob Marley knew exactly what was going on. One love, one heart, one mind, one soul. Right. So, that's what I want to know too. I want to know what can we do to not have that stigma about it. Yes, you know the other ethnicities are really good about keeping within their own. You don't see well nowadays there's blazing. There's such thing as Black and Asian, but for a very long time you did not see Japanese or Chinese um, into marrying or having children with outside of their race, and the same thing for Jewish. So it was just like there's some kind of historical fact. Again, I'm the history buff about it. I want to know when did that change, so that it's more of a negative connotation than to really see that we're all really on this earth to help each other and love each other.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't want to like belabor the problems that I'm seeing, but I think it's important to understand the problems because I think that's how we can arrive at the solutions. And I do feel like just, you know, without being an expert, I'm not a sociologist, an anthropologist, or a psychologist, but I do study people. I mean, as part of our industry in the media, we're watching people, we're watching trends, we're watching societal phenomenon, we're watching conversations, we're watching different spaces. So I do feel like as an observer of people, my own people and others, it's something that I'm seeing more and more and more, and it's causing this fracturing within the Black community that's already fractured because the legacy that we all carry of just life in America, from enslavement to Jim Crow to post Jim Crow to now with police brutality and all these other things, school shootings, and just you name it. It's a lot of weight to carry, and I think the problem is we don't have any real outlets to channel what we're experiencing, what we're feeling, the generational trauma and drama that we still carry in our DNA. I don't think there's space or time to process it because we're always on the hunt for success. We're on the hunt to pursue our visions. We're on the hunt to pursue our goals. We're looking for love. We're looking for self improvement, betterment, elevation to higher levels of spirituality, whatever. And we don't take the time to do the work that we need to do individually to deal with the past and the baggage and the legacies that we carry. And it's a lot easier to point the finger at somebody else to or lay blame at someone else's feet than it is to just look within to figure out how you can do the work to elevate yourself. So I think one way to begin to do this is to take the time to do introspection and just look at how you process the world. What are your blinders? What are your defaults? What biases do you carry automatically, and why do you carry that? Have you ever, is there a reason why you continue to default to that bias or that heuristic or whatever it is, and why do you continue to do it? Most people do it because it's easy, it's subconscious, we don't even realize that we're doing it. But I think that's where that work needs to come in, because that's how you start to just look at the world with better eyes and move through the world differently, so that when you interact with somebody, regardless of who that person looks like or um, what they do, you're not automatically falling back on your false perceptions or stereotypes of what you think this person is based on their archetype. And I also think the other piece to it, and then I'd love to hear what thoughts you might have, are to just take everybody as an individual. No community is a monolith. Nobody has had the same experience. Yes, there are certain cultural things that we've experienced as a people, as being Black in America. It's unifying, because we're immediately all perceived as one thing, even though we're very, very diverse in every way possible, like anybody else. But I think it's important that we just start to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. Like Martin Luther King said, since we already called out the great King Malcolm X, we should also call out his counterpart, who always said he would prefer to be judged on the content of his character, not his color. We need to do the same for each other. We shouldn't just wait for the rest of America to acknowledge our humanness and who we are. We need to do it for each other instead of just making assumptions about one another based on whatever things that are not based in reality. What about you? I mean, what are your thoughts on a way to start or a way forward?
Yeah, I agree that it definitely starts in the household. It starts within the household because what keeps coming up to me, there's this image of it probably was a TikTok, a meme. It became a meme, maybe a video, some kind of video, whatever you want to call it. But they're babies. They're like not even one. They probably just started walking, and you probably would recognize it if I start to describe it. But they're babies. They just started walking. They run up to each other and give each other a big hug. One's black or darker skin, one's white or lighter skin tone, and that's it. It's the video ends of just opposite ethnicities hugging each other, right? There's no nothing else. Like there's nothing about like, oh, this person looks just like me, or this person doesn't look like me, or this person, why does this person look like that way, sound that way? It was like nothing but authentic love, and so it happened somewhere along the experiences in the household, in the school, in the medical facility, wherever the children are exposed to, and so that's the question that I have, for especially for those watching and listening of what can you think back to what age was it? What was that scenario where you realized that this ethnicity, whichever one you want to label it as for your experiences, was like a no, especially when it comes to your relationships, both platonic and business wise, right? Because that's where the change starts. You got to go backwards a little bit, as hard as it may be. You got to think about what part do you have to unlearn so that you can really be committed to um, understanding.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I know we're getting close to the end of the time, so I think I'll just leave off with this and then let you have the last word. Is that all these isms, all these stereotypes that we carry, all these biases, it's taught. It's taught behavior. It's learned behavior. It's not intrinsic. It's not inherent to when we're born. We're a clean slate, a blank canvas when we're born. In your example of like these babies who obviously don't look alike, but immediately know that they love each other and are immediately friends, there's no barriers, shows that we're not inherently meant to be apart from one another. We're all part of this larger global community, and race does not matter. It really doesn't ultimately. We're all human beings. And I feel like that could be extrapolated also to relationships between black men and black women. We don't necessarily need to demonize one another, tear each other down, apply certain biases to one another, different standards of expectations and behavior norms, and we just need to let go of those things. I mean, everyone's allowed to have their own preferences. Everyone's allowed to have the things that they want and don't want, and their boundaries that they can set. But you don't have to. That's for you. That's not something that you put onto somebody else. You don't have the right to do that to somebody else, nor does anyone have the right to do that to you. So it just goes back again, like I said, to personal accountability, to doing the internal work, getting yourself educated, and really trying to move differently. I really believe that's where it will start. And if enough of us do that, it will become a movement and it will shift. It'll make the kind of shift that we need to see to kind of come back together as a community and stop tearing each other down.
Absolutely, and I want to add something just from the spiritual and religious standpoint. Um, when you do have a minute or check out that app, double check in your holy book, whichever holy book it is that you read or grew up reading. Double check where does it say anything about race in it, right? I think that's the one thing that easily gets overlooked. All the scenarios and the stories and all the prophets, that are shared, it doesn't anywhere say anything about race. It's only once you start to have pictures depicted that we think it looks like XYZ, So go back to the early book and take a look and see. Right. So it's gonna take a lot of work for you. And I'm so glad that you even made it to this part of the conversation because this is an objective view. We're real, we're authentic, and we want to genuinely understand. So always, follow us on social media individually. I am at Illuminous One and Leah World Traveler, and but also follow the Majestic View. I believe its YouTube handle is Majestic View Show. So definitely
Yep.
check us out on YouTube at Majestic View Show and leave a comment. And there's no bullying going on here. All right. So this is that safe
Judgment free
space.
zone. We
So
just want real conversations. That's
exactly,
all we're trying to do is just
exactly.
connect, learn, and share.
Yes. So I am Zaakirah with a Majestic View from Tulsa, Oklahoma.
And I'm Leah World Traveler with a Majestic View from Jamestown, Rhode Island. Thanks for joining us.